Hello, it's Stuart here with another story from my classical record dealing days. So this happened in, let me see, 1993, I think it was. So yeah, I opened a shop in 1993, a record shop, which is probably I sort of count it as my my best achievement in business. I mean, it really was an extraordinary shop. I really put a lot into it in terms of designing it and making it comfortable for customers. There was free coffee available, records, CDs, tapes, and I was generally very busy and I did well out of it. I ended up selling it to my father, oddly enough, when I decided to focus on collectible classical records. But um, so yeah, when I had my shop, I was doing my best to buy in very interesting CDs for people to buy. So in those days, as you may recall, a brand new CD was, say, up to about £15. A full price CD could be had for about between 13 and £15, depending on where you bought it. And I was selling full price CDs, secondhand, but in excellent condition for about £8. And obviously, that's one of the reasons I was busy, because people could come into my shop and they could buy exactly the same issues for nearly double. They could either pay double the price nearly, or they could buy it from me for much cheaper. And I had some fantastic customers. I used to have people coming in spending £100 on CDs, and it was really good. So I used to advertise in various magazines and various sources for collections. And one day I got a phone call from a gentleman who said he was a reviewer for BBC Music Magazine and Gramophone, and he had two other friends who were also reviewers, and they had a lot of CDs they wanted to sell in near pristine condition because, as reviewers, they were sent free copies of CDs by the manufacturers. And obviously they weren't expected to send them back. They did the review was published, and they kept the CD, which is fair enough. So consequently, over several years, they'd amassed, between them all, anyway, they had something like 500 CDs to sell. That was quite an exciting quantity of stock to get hold of in those days, because I typically had in stock in CDs. How many did I have? I probably had about 300 single CDs, and I had maybe 50 opera sets in at any one time. Sometimes I had more than that, way more. But, to suddenly get 500 brand new CDs, I always did well. When I put new stock out, people would come in and my turnover would be absolutely phenomenal. It was really great to get new stock in. It would also increase the reputation of my shop, because people recognized that I had quality stock coming in all the time, and they would visit me regularly to see if there was anything new there. So yeah, I got this call from this guy, and he had these two colleagues, and I said, yeah, I'm interested. And we kind of discussed prices, and we more or less agreed what the price would be. So there wouldn't be, I don't tend to like it when there's a lot of bargaining. Yeah, I like to sort of know what I'm going to pay beforehand. And then if I see the gear and it's not quite what I expected, then I would bargain. But generally, I like to try and agree what the price is first. So I said, yeah, okay. And I invited them to my house. Now, I'd moved on from CDs at this time. I had a really good quality system. I had a pair of Kef standing speakers. Um, I had a Croft preamp power combination valve, and I had a really good quality turntable, which had on it an SME 3009 ARM and a Shure VST5 moving magnet cartridge, which was a really sophisticated cartridge, a lot of finesse on the sound. Yeah, so it was it was a good system. I mean, just to give you an idea of how good it was, somebody came to me once who had bought from Tom Fletcher, Nottingham Analog, one of his reference turntables for about, I don't know, £4,000 or something. And he listened to my system. He was impressed. He said, I don't know whether he was just flattering me, but he looked impressed. He said it's a similar kind of quality to what he's listening to with his reference turntable. So I did have a good system. I haven't got quite as good a system now, even though I've got the Riga Planer 2. Mainly partly because my speakers and my amp are nowhere near as good as what I used to have. But okay, well look, I'm digressing. Let me tell you what happened. But it's kind of relevant. You'll find out why. Yeah, so they arrived, three people. There were two men, there was a woman, middle-aged, probably late 50s, something like that. Very nice people, looked like they were from Cambridge, Oxford, that kind of thing. I invited them in, made them a cup of tea. They brought in all the CDs. I went through them. I looked at them. I said, yeah, I mean, everything was absolutely pristine. There were no broken cases, nothing like that, no cracks. You know, I mean, everything looked like it was shining. It was absolutely super condition. There was opera sets, you know, symphony sets, chamber music sets, unusual repertoire, modern repertoire, classical repertoire, the whole lot. I mean, it was absolutely, it was a real gold mine of stock, 500 items roughly, and I can't remember what I paid, but it was over £1,000. I think I might have paid £2 across the board, 250 maybe, because they were virtually all full price, and I was selling them for £8. So, you know, I made good money out of that. I mean, even taking into account I didn't sell everything in the end, but yeah. So while I was going through their stock, I noticed that they had Mahler's Second Symphony with Klemperer conducting, and I think they managed to squeeze the whole lot onto a single CD, if my memory serves me correctly. And I picked that out, and I suddenly had a thought, because I had in my record stock at that time a blue and silver SAX Columbia original issue going back to, I think, 1965, stereo. I said, oh, I've got the record of this, and I picked the record out, the two record set. I said, look. And they said, oh yeah, I remember that. You know, they were sort of late 50s. They could remember. Oh yes, I remember that, seeing that in the shops. There was an SLS box set reissue, of course. That's probably what they had at some time. And I said, shall we try an experiment? Let's listen to your CD. Now, I had a CD50 SE Marantz player at the time, which was one of the best CD players around at that particular time. It cost me about £300 in those days, which, you know, was quite a bit of money. I also had a Meridian digital to analog converter, so I knew that I was playing it on good quality gear. And I said, let's have a listen to the CD opening, first movement, and then let's listen to the record. So I'll put the CD on, and for those of you know how the Mahler starts, it starts with a kind of, you know, all the strings in unison, a sort of tremolo, quite a sinister, big sound, and it really sort of jumps out at you when it starts. And yeah, they were impressed. I mean, that was what they were expecting. Yeah, it sounds good. There's the CD. And then I put the record on, and I don't know, I mean, it was like, how can I say? I mean, suddenly the deficiency in the CD was apparent, because the opening on the record just went, wow, you know, it was a big sound that really, you know, not because the volume was higher, but it just sort of filled the room with the presence of music. And I saw I saw their eyes, you know, I mean, there was no doubt about it. The difference in quality was so incredibly obvious, you know, the bite of the instruments. And I mean, you could almost sense the sound stage and everything. It was like almost like the instruments were there. The sound stage was much more impressive. It was much bigger. And wow, I mean, they were impressed. And you know, they looked like they were shell shocked, because they'd sold their record collections, and you know, they were now listening to CDs. But I mean, a lot of people who listen to CDs, they've never heard a really impressive vinyl system, and they think that CDs are good simply because they've never heard what vinyl can do on a really good system. And I absolutely blew that CD out of the water, and I blew them away as well. And of course I paid the money over to them. One of them said, he said, that was impressive. He said, of course, I think that the level was a bit up on the record, you know, the recording level maybe, but even taking that into account, I admit it did sound a lot better. And well, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe the mastering techniques they used at the time, the remaster on the CD wasn't so good. Maybe, but that was a really impressive demonstration. And I mean, they left very quiet. They arrived full of enthusiasm and everything. And of course, they got their money, which is what they'd come for. But they left. I mean, they had kind of very thoughtful expressions on their faces as they went out of the door, probably, thinking, maybe thinking more about, the claims that CD has superior sound and everything. But there's nothing more pleasurable for a vinyl enthusiast like me than getting in a CD convert and then just completely blowing them out of the water with a demonstration of what vinyl can really do. So yeah, anyway, that's my story, and hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back again with another tale fairly soon. Bye for now.